The Call of Duty Vanguard beta is over, and people are getting their feedback on the game. Big complaints about how the spawns are bad, or the rushdown meta, or the same 3-lane map design, or the sniper meta, or the sun. But the one thing I've seen nobody discuss is which gun in the Call of Duty Vanguard beta is best girl. Well, looks like this is a job for me. Also, because for some reason I thought it was a good idea, this list is going to use this Dexerto list of guns that are in the beta, and guns from Call of Duty World War II that will probably be in the game. This list is just my opinion, which means it's 100% correct because I know no one else is gonna make this tier list after me. The C96 is a semi-automatic pistol originally produced by the German arms manufacturer Mauser. However, unlicensed variants of the gun were also produced in Spain and China. The default C96 in Vanguard is the Carl Westinger M712 Chanel Fire, a fully automatic evolution of the Spanish select fire variants of the C96. And yeah, I see what thought it would be a great idea to make the C96 a skimpily clad young girl. Or at least someone who looks like a young girl. I mean, she does seem to grow up a bit when you upgrade her, but like, that design's way too messy and not really great. I mean, I really do wish C96 design wasn't for crab lovers, or just not a fucking child, because there is some depth in her costume design. She's wearing an SS uniform shirt and is adorned with lots of iron crosses throughout her design, be it replacements for her armband symbol, just thrown around her clothing, or literally her eyes. On her collar, we can see an emblem with 3 lions and 3 diamonds, signifying her rank to be Storm Chief Leader. Personality-wise, she's kind of childish and full of energy, repeating words over and over again, and it's kinda even overly trusting. The reason why C96 wears very little clothing is because she feels very uncomfortable in them and tends to overheat while wearing actual clothing. I'm not 100% sure if most C96 had heat issues, but some variants do mention how sustained fully automatic fire would cause the gun to set on fire, and that changes were made to prevent overheating. The Burp Gun, Papasha, Daddy, or just the PPSH, a magazine-fed select-fire submachine gun designed in the Soviet Union by Georgy Shepagin in 1941. It was made to be a cheap, simple, and reliable alternative to the PPD-40 submachine gun. I am not well versed in Russian clothing, but I at least can tell her clothes feel Russian, or at least anime Russian. Although you could just slap a Yushanka on any anime girl and people will think they're Russian. PPSH is supposed to be like a daughter to you, I hope, playing off the daddy nickname that the Soviets gave the gun. She also feels some conscious about her weight because the PPSH is a very heavy gun, weighing at 5.5 kilograms or 12 pounds when fully loaded, which is heavier than most full-powered rifles. But yeah, if you think she's any higher, then you're a fucking crabbler, you fucking disgusting digit. Based on the German MP-18, the Type 100 was an iconic weapon of the Imperial Japanese Infantry, and the only submachine gun to be produced by the Japanese. Type 100 is wearing an Imperial Japanese uniform coat and a schoolgirl uniform under it. I'm not too sure what the 3 stars on the right sleeve is supposed to indicate, and the schoolgirl part of the design could either just be a waifu bait or a reference to the Hime Yuri students, also known as the Lily Corps, which was a group of 222 students and 18 teachers that were conscripted to form a nursing unit of the Imperial Japanese Army during the Battle of Okinawa. This is kinda supported in her design as she does have a petal thing going for her with her skirt and stocking, although I'm pretty certain that there's supposed to be cherry blossom petals and not lilies. Thankfully, Type 100 is the last lily we need to worry about and we can start the tier list proper. The M3, or its more commonly known name, the Grease Gun, was designed by George Hyde, a mechanist from General Motors for use in the US Army in 1942. It was made to be a cheaper and easier to produce alternative to the Thompson submachine gun. It's just that M3's design is so bland and unremarkable. I bet even our artist November Nova forgets that she even exists. M3 is wearing clothing reminiscent of a US military officer, and the insignia on her left arm shows that she has a rank of corporal. Her character quirks fully consist of a slight self-doubt and jokes being called a grease gun. There's not much to talk about here because there's quite literally nothing here. Hitler's Buzzsaw, the Machine Rifle 42, or just the MG42, is a general-purpose machine gun that entered the service of the Nazi Germany's the Wehrmacht and Waffen-SS in 1942. It was developed from and meant to replace the MG34 machine gun, although it never did replace the MG34 and was used alongside it until the war's end. A strange choice to use white and violet clothes instead of the usual dark gray and greenish gray uniforms that the other Wehrmacht-inspired waifus have. This is a pretty big downside for me as I really do like the aesthetic that the not Nazis Nazi uniforms have. Personality-wise, she is described as being energetic and gung-ho with a lot of respect towards her older sister. The only thing I do enjoy about her personality is that she has a voracious appetite, in reference to all the ammo issues the MG42 had throughout its time in service. The DP is a Soviet-made gas-operated light machine gun that was first tested in 1927 and introduced in 1928. It is important to say both because for some reason the world has not agreed on a proper name for the DP. since the Soviet records have only been referred to as the DP-27, but in the West we call it the DP-28 for some reason. I am not a fan of DP-28. She's just Kumar bait with her open shirt and lack of pants. I would be fine with a kind of fan service design if it wasn't for the fact that her boobs are basically hanging out, because her big dumb white Ushanka and white cape look really good in my opinion. Personality wise, the DP-28 is a flirty cougar. Have no idea what that's from historically, and probably just waifu bait. Yeah. 1941 New Zealand. There's a shortage of Brennan Lewis light machine guns, like a desperate shortage, and they need to find a replacement fast. Thankfully, New Zealander Philip Charlton designs the Charlton Automatic Rifle, or CAR with a C, a fully automatic conversion to Lee Enfield. I really don't like CAR's design. It tries way too hard to be Kumar bait, and she's just a titty monster with a boob window wearing a leotard and tights. However, I do love how she carries a fire extinguisher, a pretty funny reference to what happens to the gun that she's based on. If CAR just had a more practical or tactical design while keeping the fire extinguisher, I think she could be easily a high tier design for me. She's also kind of paranoid about security and saying that the fence is up to code, which I like since the CAR was a home guard defense weapon against the Japanese. And if the constant carrying of a fire extinguisher was enough for you, she does have pyrophobia, which is great considering what happened to almost all of the cars. The child of the German G41 and the Soviet Tokarev SVT-40, the Gewehr 43 were named in 1944 to the Carabiner 43, was the end result of Germany's quest to find a semi-automatic infantry rifle. G43's black uniform is clearly inspired by the German infantry's M36 uniform and a bit of the newer M43 uniform. Just, you know, with extra embellishments like a big flowing officer coat, a skirt, knee socks, and iron cross earrings to make it a bit more waifu. To me, this is exactly what I want to see in the designs of historical guns, references to who used it while still being appealing. I can't give the same praise to G43's character, or lack of. Like really, I can't tell you anything about her. I scraped through every single line of her dialogue and there's nothing there. When the Philippine insurrection demonstrated the ineffectiveness of the .38 caliber Colt in 1992, the US Army began looking for a new service pistol. After dominating an endurance test against other potential designs in 1911, legendary US Army designers John Moses Browning's new pistol design was adopted as the US Army Model 1911 Colt Automatic Pistol, or the more commonly known name, the M1911. I don't like 1911 that much. I mean, she probably has her fans, but something always just felt off for me when looking at her. Although, she does have the funny Dante Devil May Cry reference with her white and black M1911s. Her personality can be kind of described as a very protective and caring bodyguard, and I also really enjoyed M1911's story, as she was the best in the past, but now she's a veteran struggling to stay relevant against the new competition. New recruits are gunning for her title as one of Commander's main bodyguards, and she has to leverage her extensive combat experience to stay competitive with their superior specs. It's a pretty good story, and it mirrors the real-life M1911's journey until it was eventually replaced by the Glock 19. Born from the desperation that arose from losing Dunkirk, the Sten was designed by Major Reginald V. Shepard and Mr. Harold John Turpin and was adopted in 1941. The goal was to appease the British forces' need of simple, low-cost submachine guns. Sten has a pretty cute and simple design. Instead of going for the obvious militaristic infantry look, she's wearing civilian clothes to mimic what a partisan would look like. This allows her to look more traditionally attractive by not being in a uniform while still paying tribute to the gun's history, as Stens were the weapon of choice of British partisans. Personality-wise, she's outgoing and fills in the kind girl next door character niche. Her hobbies include the culinary arts, more specifically, pastry making. And the waifu bait to chop everything off is her massive crush towards the commander. Derived from the Lee Medford, the Lee Enfield is a bolt-action, magazine-fed repeating rifle that served as the main firearm of the British soldiers in World War II. The Enfield has seen many developments throughout its long service time. The design that we are likely to see in Vanguard is going to be a variant of the SMLE, short magazine Lee Enfield, as that was the type being used in World War II. Lee Enfield's, or Anti-Lee, or Annan's Aunt if you're a real one, its coat is definitely inspired by the famous British redcoat uniform. More specifically, it looks to be the design used in the early 20th century. This becomes even more clear when you compare her outfit to the uniform worn by Field Marshal Francis Wallace Grenfell, 1st Baron Grenfell. Personality-wise, she's a pretty entertaining bookworm, reading things like detective and mystery novels. All this reading also has given Lee Enfield her analytical personality, having escapades of finding MDR's killer in the mysterious mansion and determining the playstyles of other World War II rifles in the poker game with ease. She also has a pretty close bond with Springfield, a reference to the generally friendly relationship between the United States and the United Kingdom, and the last trait that makes up her character is how horrible at cooking she is. A mix of the common trope of the beautiful girl who can't cook, and the common joke that British food is really bad. Developed after the conclusion of the First World War by John Garand, the M1 Garand is a 30 caliber semi-automatic rifle. While it is a well-known and used weapon of the US infantry, it's most famous for the distinct ping noise it makes when it ejects an empty end-block clip. M1 Garand's outfit is, like many other guns I have and will talk about, based on the uniform of the country that developed the IRL gun. In her case, I think it might be a rendition of the M41 uniform that the American GIs would wear. She is wearing her field jacket in an incorrect Makise Kurusu way, which is automatically huge bonus points. Garand is also wearing a green beret, which might be a reference to the green beret as the Garand was used a little bit in the Vietnam War. However, I think that's a really big stretch. Personality-wise, Garand is her own character and is not based off her gun. She's a perfectionist, to a degree where people will start questioning if her amount of double and triple checking is actually necessary. She also seems to have a bit of a sweet tooth, although she would never admit it, and sometimes even blames her younger sister M1A1 as a scapegoat. I do find it really strange that the ping is not referenced anywhere in her personality, but I'll take whatever I can get. Designed by Heinrich Vollmer, with inspirations from its predecessor the MP38, the Machine Pistol 40 or the MP40 was a favorite among the Axis power soldiers on both the Eastern and Western fronts. MP40's outfit is reminiscent of the German tank crew uniform used in World War II. This was most likely done because the MP40 was used as a personal defense weapon for tank crews. The color of her uniform is also not changed to black to fit the aesthetic that many other German World War II guns are going for, as the tank crew uniform was black to prevent oil stains from showing up on the fabric. Personality-wise, MP40 is a bit of stickler for rules and has a pretty strict adherence to the chain of command, being fiercely loyal to the commander and often pulls rank to try and prevent others from misbehaving. This aspect of her personality probably stems from how the platoon and squad leaders were equipped with MP40s and the whole "I was just following orders" from the Nuremberg trials. She's also slightly conscious about her weight, as while unloaded, the MP40 weighs more than the PPSH. However, it does weigh a bit less when they are both fully loaded, and to make sure she has extra waifu ability, MP40 is not only loyal and cares about the commander dearly, but she also only reveals her softer side to them. Intended to replace the Lewis gun, the Bren Light machine gun is considered to be one of the best and finest machine guns ever designed, despite the fact that it's magazine fed, due to its reliability, accuracy, and efficiency for a machine gun. I don't think Bren's outfit is a reference to anything. If it is, the reference flew completely over my head. Like, she has a red coat, but it can't be a red coat reference since it doesn't look like any of the renditions of the uniform. Regardless, Bren's outfit looks good. You don't need clothes chock full of references to look good. She also is pretty stern and could come up a bit of an asshole. Since most of her involvement in stories outside of her own, she's just there to criticize the past actions of her squad mates. When it comes to group dynamics, Bren is usually the straight man, and usually has to be because she's paired up with characters like IDW and Wellrod. However, when she's not the straight man, Bren is pretty gullible, as she was convinced by Best Gun MDR that Stargazy Pie was a romantic dish. Probably the best way to describe her is a Lancer straight man to the Wellrod's Justice Chunyism. Weighing in at 19 pounds and firing 20 rounds at a rate of 500 rounds per minute, the Browning Automatic Rifle, or BAR for short, was developed alongside the M1917 Browning machine gun in an effort to modernize the US Armory in World War I, and end a reliance on European machine guns like the Chauchat. BAR, or sometimes Auntie Bar's uniform is clearly based on the type worn by US officers in World War II. She even has the stereotypical aviators that for some reason Americans always have in the movies. I am not too well versed in uniforms, so I actually don't know if BAR's upgrade design is a reference to anything, but I do think it looks pretty good. But the only reason why I bring it up is because I want to point out the BAR that she's using is mutilated beyond belief. It's really disgusting, but has no weight over replacement. Personality-wise, she's very relaxed and can work efficiently in even the most stressful of situations. I'm not 100% sure if this is a reference to not how bars were used in the Pacific Theater to help break contact from ambushes. She also has an upgrade story, but that's not really worth mentioning as it's just a worse version of 1911's. Missing the First World War by just 2 days, the Annihilator, renamed to the Thompson submachine gun, was invented by John T. Thompson. The Thompson gained notoriety during the years between the two world wars due to its use by criminals, but it was redeemed when it was adopted as the M1928A1 by the US in World War II. I don't think anyone's gonna argue that the Thompson is not hot. No one's gonna say they want a Tommy Dommy mommy. God, that's fucking horrible. Her designs playing on the notoriety that the Thompson submachine gun gained as a gun used by gangsters in the 1920s, rather than being another uniform modification like everybody else on this list. I don't think there's any specific gangster references, or that if she's even time period friendly, just gangster-like in apparel with the fedora and cigar. Thompson acts like a mafia underling or goon, working closely with the commander and calling them boss. She's also a pretty good mentor, as almost all of her story appearances is as a mentor figure. The TT-30, more commonly known as the Tokarev self-loading pistol or just Tokarev, was developed in the early 1930s by Fyodor Tokarev as a replacement for the Nagant revolver. Although it didn't replace the Nagant revolver and served alongside it. Tokarev's design is not grounded in any references, which is fine. You don't need references to look good. She's wearing a simple white dress with a big blue bow and a larger black and blue bow in her hair to make it look like cat ears or something. Not too sure what's with the stocking or tights being the same design as the sleeves, but I do admit it kinda looks weird. Also, Biju's inescapable high-quality fan art may or may not be inflating Tokarev's rating. On paper, Tokarev is a tsundere. However, it's not in that shitty, "it's not that I like you or anything" kind of way. She acts critical and hard on those she cares about because she feels it's the best way for them to grow. For example, she'll reprimand the commander if they start slacking off a little, but only because she cares for them and wants them to get their work done. She also makes no effort in hiding her trust towards the commander, as on the few occasions where she actually needs help or needs to feel safe, she actively seeks out the commander. Designed by Vladimir Fedorov in 1915, the Fedorov Automat, or just Fedorov, was the world's first operational automatic rifle, and it is the early predecessor of the modern assault rifle. If Fedorov's overall outfit design is a reference to something, then it's completely lost on me. But who cares, she's probably one of my favorite designs. Her treatments are references to her Russian heritage, the Russian nesting doll, and the Orthodox Christianity cross. In reality, Fedorov's placement is solely based on how much I like her character design, because personality-wise, she's just alright. Calm and careful, she often takes time to critically think about possible situations that may occur. Fedorov is the type of person to over-prepare for everything, which causes some extra stress for her when she actually doesn't need to prepare at all. Also, she seems to be a friend with Kolobi and Peroza. In fact, lines that should be used to characterize Fedorov is instead used to help characterize her friends. The Karabiner 98 Kurz, or Kar 98 for short, was adopted in June of 1935 as the standard service rifle by the Wehrmacht of Nazi Germany. And I mean, it's her! The gun whose design was so good, it was stolen twice! Kar's clothes are inspired by the SS uniform, this time with major modifications, turning the coat into a full-on dress, and of course she has the aesthetic big dumb hat and big fluffy coat. And, after looking at the image long enough, you sure have noticed it, right? Either she's really small or that's one huge car. To this day, it's unknown if the artist doesn't know how big a car is, or it was just an aesthetic choice. Oh yeah, and there's that funny Jim reference when she says German engineering is the strongest in the world. The best way to sum up Kar's personality is practical and prideful. She sees no value in celebrating things like anniversaries. Rather, she would just love to spend more time with the people she cares about just like it was any other day. As in the grand scheme of things, the amount of time that passes means nothing. It's what happens in that time that matters. Kar's pride in herself and her skills are well earned. However, that was also her downfall in her poker match against Springfield and Lee Enfield, as she couldn't back down from an all-in. Her also is quick-witted and has a bit of a sharp tongue, being able to quickly make short, slightly mean-spirited comedic quips about those around her. She's also slightly flirty, being one of the few guns to actively pursue the commander's attention and wanting them around. The Sturmgewehr 44, or STG-44, was developed in the later years of World War II as a response of the overwhelming firepower of the PPSH submachine gun and the SVT-40 semi-automatic rifles of the Soviet Red Army. The new rifle was mostly only given to the upper hierarchical units of the Wehrmacht like the Panzer Grenadiers and the paratroopers. STG-44 changes things up with a uniform inspired by the Air Force branch of the World War II German military. We can tell that her ranks that of a general due to her golden insignia, Aiguillette, buttons, and braided chain strip. The wing parachute insignia also makes it possible that the STG is also a paratrooper, which would fit her weapon's history. Her upgrade design is also one of the few that I like way more than her original design. I think it's supposed to resemble the modern day German Air Force uniform, but to be fair, the uniforms still resemble the World War II uniforms. Also, she has a beret and berets or peak headwear. To an outside observer, SCG may seem very strict and zealous. She demonstrates unfailing loyalty to the commander and the mission, and can be seen just following orders. She is shown to even sacrifice herself if it means the mission can be completed successfully, going off on a last stand against immeasurable forces. She's also a bit of a neat freak, worrying if her uniform might get dirty or if the commander's dressed properly. However, when off duty, STG is surprisingly friendly and kind. Officially designated as the United States Caliber 36 model of 1903, the M1903 Springfield saw plenty of use in World War II until early 1944, where the M1 Garand basically completely replaced it. Springfield's clothes screams America in the most tasteful way possible, with the main colors to make up her attire being red, white, and blue. Her blue blazer is patterned to resemble a military academy cadet's parade uniform, but it's also worn to look like a Revolutionary War uniform. The sleeves of the blazer are also embroidered in black with the design found on the sleeves of a US Army officer's special evening dress. Springfield can be best described as gentle and mature in nature. She's like a mother figure to her companions, the one that everyone turns to when they're having problems and issues that they're stuck dwelling on. She kinda acts like a housewife, and usually the commander acts as her husband, as seen in their interactions during her Christmas and formal dress costume stories, as they're always collaborating to create the best experience for the younger guns, be it pretending to be Santa Claus or organizing a formal party for them since they missed out on the official party, only to end the experience even closer to each other than they were before. The 3-line rifle model of 1891, later renamed to the Mosin Nagant, was a primary infantry rifle of the Soviet Army. Simoheya, the White Death, has the highest confirmed sniper kill count in history and was known for using a Mosin Nagant with iron sights. Mosin Nagant has a pretty simple design, a white uniform to help her in her winter operations. Her Ushanka has a Soviet Army badge to make sure you know that the Mosin Nagant was a Soviet gun, since she isn't wearing a Soviet uniform. The Molotov cocktail is just there for aesthetic, but is a strange choice since historically the Soviets have been on the receiving end of Molotov cocktails of the Battle of Khalkhin Gol and the Winter War. And her upgrade design is top tier. Her uniform changes into a more casual one that looks great, the best part being that the loss of the small worthless cape and fit for the fluffy jacket, and the Mosin Nagant's Molotov cocktails have been replaced with RPG-43 anti-tank hand grenades. A Soviet grenade, Mosin Nagant approaches life in a way to get the most fun out of the moment. While playing poker with the other World War II rifles, Lee Enfield realized she couldn't develop a strategy around Mosin Nagant because she was playing for fun, unlike Springfield and Carr. Fun for Mosin Nagant also means taking big risks, and is what's most likely led to her downfall in the poker match. She also likes learning the history about guns, more specifically, the gun that she's based on, the Mosin Nagant, and develops a small obsession with the legacy and history that she has to live up to. Also, Russian stereotype, drunk girl, although she doesn't really get drunk that often. However, when she does, Mosin Nagant wants to make sure the commander is drunk with her. And that's it. Literally nobody's watching at this point, but all I have to say is that Activision has already done a crossover with my brain rot before on Call of Duty Mobile. So this shitpost list is actually not too far-fetched, and they may have Sledgehammer do a collab with this as well. Catch me in the full game running around Red Star's Mosin Nagant. You have been warned.